All right. Good evening, everybody. It is 7:02, and I'm going to call to order the Audit and Internal Controls Committee of the Nassau County Interim Finance Authority. I will point out that although of the committee members who could be present, myself, Lester Petraka, and Adam Barsky are present. That is 3 of the 4 members, and so we have a quorum. I'll also point out that other members of the board are present and are welcome to ask questions in this committee meeting, so that when we get to the main part of the meeting, where we will likely approve the actions of this committee, we don't have to be repetitive or require the staff. So I would encourage anyone who's a member of the board to ask questions in this committee meeting so that we can move forward. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our May 23rd meeting. Would somebody like to approve that? Make a motion?
Motion.
Made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye, and the minutes are approved. The second and only other item on the agenda is the approval of NIFA's budget. Now, this is NIFA's budget, not the county's budget. You'll note because it's $2 million, not $3 billion. And Carl will walk us through that and answer any questions we might have. And that is at our tab 2.
NIFA submits a financial plan at about this time every year, as it has to be included in Nassau County's multi-year financial plan. NIFA's financial plan must also be filed with New York State's Public Authority reporting system at the earliest possible date before the fiscal year commences on January 1st. The financial plan for 2020 that I'm submitting for your approval is $475,000 less than what was adopted for 2019, mostly because of an anticipated decrease in professional fees that provides for 6 months of labor negotiations in 2020. Driven by this decrease in professional fees, totals for operating expenses in 2020 are $25,000 less than what was in last year's plan, and the total expenses for 2021 and 2022 are each $50,000 less than the plan that was presented to you last year. Our financial plan for 2020's control period expenses remains the same at $100,000 per year, which is what we had presented to you last year, reflecting the continued sporadic activity, and is budgeted at the same amount for each of the out years. We will continue to provide for these costs until the lawsuits arising from the wage freeze imposed on Nassau County from 2011 through 2014 are resolved. Other components in the financial plan remain largely unchanged, as reflected by the decrease in professional fees and total expenses being virtually identical. The savings realized in salaries and benefits from 2019 to 2020 result from us basing our assumptions for future years on the actual levels that exist in 2019. The assumptions that we use to develop our financial plan are in your materials immediately following the document that I'm currently presenting. We've maintained our staff at our current level with an open position if the need arises, as we have in past years. If we don't fill that position, we'll require less funding, thereby making more funds available to the county. This plan includes projected increases to salary and pension and health benefits that are allowed by NIFA policy and are in accordance with the estimates provided by the New York State and local retirement system and Department of Civil Service from the state. Can I answer any questions regarding the budget?
Sure. And some of these questions might be about what's not in the plan as opposed to what's in it, but you can help set the guardrails for that. If you can confirm, it's my understanding that we had considered, because as we get closer to NIFA paying its last bond in 2025, I believe that's the terminus, NIFA cannot dissolve until all of its obligations are paid. And one of the obligations we would have would be the continuing OPEB, the other post-employment benefits. We considered funding a trust this year, which would have added almost double the budget. But it's my understanding that we did not do so in contemplation of the fact that we expect an intermunicipal agreement with the county that will cover that going forward. It would come out of the county anyway. Every dollar in our budget is a dollar the county doesn't get. Is that consistent with your understanding?
That is true. There is nothing in the budget that includes funding of an OPEB trust fund.
And I think we're actually at the stage where we're pretty close to getting that intermunicipal agreement signed, which will allow us to never have to do that between now and 2025. We won't have to double the budget in any of these years.
But I would say just, should we not get that, we would then have to revisit this issue and see if we were obligated amongst ourselves for our own fiduciary duties to create such a fund.
Right.
That's my understanding,
Fair.
yes.
It's a minor point because it amortizes into next to nothing over the period of time except the year you do it. So,
yep.
Good. And also, the universe of what's in the budget, this is our spending. This doesn't include the full NIFA P&L, which normally has $1 billion of sales tax and $150 million of debt service, and then $900 million to the county.
Right.
That's in the county's plan, this is our piece.
This is just
additive
our
to the
piece,
county's.
that's right. This is our operational budget.
Okay. As opposed, and the county picks it up in their budget, all the debt service, because it's really, they show the sales tax, they show the debt service.
Correct.
Fair. That answer your question?
Well, just, I think what Chris was alluding to is that 535 million is on our books, which is why there's a different rating for us, because we are the first receipt of the sales taxes. So what I'm suggesting, something for us to consider is, at the very least, our P&L is different, but on our expenses, we might want to include the debt service on this, even though it's coming from the county, on this annual budget, because this is just our internal operating. Because in reality,
We could
are
expand it
responsible for
to
that.
cover that, yes. We could expand it to cover that.
But we
which
would
be
add,
the-
we would add $1 for every dollar of debt service in sales tax to cover.
It would be a pure pass-through. You would have the debt service set-asides, and then you would have the debt distributions in May and November.
And one other question, Carl, on the professional fees, is that due to that 782,000 drop down to 307 projected for next year? Is that primarily our outside advisors?
That's
this year?
correct, yes.
That's our estimate, because it's
We had
just within
prepared the budget in October of 2018 for 2019, and really didn't have a handle on as to what the cost would be for the negotiations. So we put a number in there, and and as it turned out, the actual fee was substantially less than what our estimate was at that point. And for 2020, we've only taken 6 months of that amount.
So the actual in 2019 is also lower than the adopted budget, not just the budget.
That's correct. Yes.
Carl, if we go over in 2020, where do the funds come from?
There would be withheld, part of the withholdings from.
And what action
from
is
the
required to do that in excess of our budget?
Traditionally, we've come well under budget with each year. This year I'm projecting that for a budget of $2,475,000, I'm estimating we're going to come in at under $1.8 million. We've done that year after year, so my expectation is that we wouldn't go over budget.
I think, Howard, it's the theoretical. We've never tested the theory, but if
It's a big number you're talking
Right.
about relative to the budget. I mean, you put in 6 months. If it goes 12 months, that's $380,000.
The other thing that we would keep in mind is that I've budgeted for 6 positions, and we have 5, so there would be savings from the salary and fringes line.
Right. But I think operationally, Howard, if we were to exceed the budget, which we haven't done yet, we would come back to this committee for an amendment mid-year.
That's what I want
Yeah.
to hear.
We just we've never tested the theory.
Yeah, we've never tested the
Yeah.
theories.
So I think that's the theoretical answer, but let's not test it. Any other questions for Carl? Would Lester or Adam, would you like to move that we approve this?
So moved.
Made and seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and I vote aye, and it passes. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if I'm within my rights to ask this, but could you have the minutes of your meeting include that discussion we just had?
They will, and the audio tape will as well.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'll reference that this meeting occurred when we get to our general meeting, so that the people who might be dying to watch this on video will know to rewind. Okay.
There's one item I'd like to add.
Okay.
Okay. While I'm presenting, I should tell you that we've issued an RFP for an independent auditor, since our agreement with the RSM expired when our 2018 audit engagement ended. In addition to posting the RFP on the New York State Contract Reporter, I reached out to the New York State Economic Development Corp. for recommendations of auditing firms that were certified MBEs and WBEs. I issued invitations to bid to 3 firms who indicated that they have governmental auditing experience. I went through the same process with the New York State service-disabled veterans-owned businesses and issued an invitation to bid to 1 auditing firm based on the same criteria. We intend to make a decision in time for our October 15th meeting.
Great, thank you. And of course,
All
obviously,
all those 3 firms?
Alan Joseph was one of them. Gallardo's was another one, and I think C.H. Joseph was a third. Yeah, if you have recommendations.
and I think we take some instruction and guidance from who the county chooses as well. We're not constrained by that.
That was my next.
We're not constrained by that, but it certainly
Yes,
makes
but it certainly makes it a lot easier.
it's a good
for
cost
everybody.
advantage for everybody if you use the same firm.
In the past, there's been economies of scale.
Sure.
Based, the respondents to our RFP have had a much lower proposal cost.
Right.
If they were getting,
Well, as a
getting
practical
county
matter,
deal.
a large firm that would audit the county wouldn't even take the engagement to audit us for what we pay. You'd only get them if they came with a county audit. practically.
We intentionally waited
Right.
after the county had made
Of course.
the selection.
Right.
Has the county done that?
They have tentatively done that in their negotiations.
Okay.
Have they announced the firm?
They have not announced.
There's no announcement.
By the time they get finished, we will be
We'll know.
receiving the response.
It'll be helpful to know. Because this committee will take that on, and we need to understand.
So
that.
in effect, if we try to do that, that's going to wash out all those firms.
Oh, it all rolls into the same consultant.
It's
Unless
possible.
They were picked by the county.
One opinion.
But it's good to know who else is out there and what they
Yes,
can
they
do.
can do it.
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
You know, there's certainly efficiencies that can be gained by having the same firm, but, you know, if the need arises, we could find another firm.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Carl? Has a motion to adjourn been made, seconded?
Voted
All
on.
in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. This committee is adjourned. Mr. Chairman, your meeting is yours.
Okay, now we will begin the regular meeting of the Nassau County Interim Finance Authority of September 10th, 2019. And we will consider the first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the meeting of May 23rd, 2019.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. Item 2 is to approve the submission of NYFA's 2020 budget and fiscal year 2020 through 2023 financial plan to the Office of State Controller and the Authority's Budget Office to comply with New York State Law 2, Part 203, 2801. But anyway, okay.
Mr. Chairman, at a previous committee meeting that just concluded, the Audit and Internal Controls Committee considered this. All members of the board were present and asked questions to the extent that they had any, and we approved it unanimously. I move that we approve it in this board meeting.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Item 3 is the adoption of whistleblower guidelines and taking of related actions.
So the state has asked us to create a policy whereby directors or employees can report credible allegations of misconduct without repercussions. And that is what this policy is in front of you, and we ask that you adopt it.
All in favor? Any questions?
Yeah. Sorry. We got distracted by water here.
The idea is to be able to report credible allegations of impropriety without any repercussions.
And is this not new?
So
Is this a continuation of current policy or something brand new?
this is something new, and the state has asked us to create it, so we're complying with the state's request.
Who would the intake officer be for us if somebody had a whistle to blow?
It depends who, but basically I would be the intake.
Unless it was
or-
against you, in which
And/or
case-
the audit committee, depending upon the circumstances.
So will that be made clear that it would be you?
It's in the
Unless
regulation.
there was a conflict and then it would go to the chairman of the audit committee?
Well, it's in the regulations. I don't recall the exact
Got it.
procedure, but there is a procedure in case I'm not available, or the audit committee isn't available, or Evan isn't available. There's a set of procedures written.
So if you were the object of the complaint,
Yes, obviously.
I would get the
not-
privilege of investigating you.
And you ought, reporting individual, among other things, as a fail-safe, the reporting individual always has the right to go to the state authority's budget office.
Got it.
If they feel there's a conflict.
It's a best practice. I move that we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item is consideration of county contract for the Nassau Healthcare Corporation.
Hello. So you have in front of you the resolution to approve a contract with the Nassau Healthcare Corporation, which is for the provision of healthcare services to Nassau County inmates. This item is an extension to both term and cost to the contract approved by the NYFA Board of Directors on July 25th, 2017. This amendment adds 6 months to the original term of the contract and $10.5 million in funding, which reflects keeping the same monthly fee that the contract currently has. The new expiration date is February 29, 2020. The method of procurement that the county used, they issue a request for expression of interest on January 18 of 2019 to identify interest from healthcare providers that could supply healthcare services on a long-term basis. After reviewing the responses, the county concluded that the best interest of the county would be served by entering into a new contract with NHCC. In order to negotiate a long-term service contract that includes performance metrics, the county and NHCC agreed to extend the current contract, and that's where this item comes to place. The new amount, the new not to exceed amount goes up to 56.7. The original contract was for 42 million, and it went from 2017 to August of 2019, and it had a 10% allowance of 4.2, which totaled 46.2, plus the 10.5 that it's in front of you today raises it up to 56.7. Is there any questions?
You mentioned it'll be funded through the operating budget. I assume it's, for the remainder of the year, that's the amount that's in the budget too. It doesn't,
I think the county is going to have to do some provisions in order to fund the contract completely.
between now and the end of the year.
Because the contract last year actually was a little higher than what they budgeted, so they had to actually do a appropriation in there via board transfer, and I believe that after they do the outpatient care, which is not included in this contract, they will have to fund additional. They will have to put additional funding.
How much
but
was
the
it?
21 million is in the budget.
It is.
How much was a little more?
3.2.
That's a little more.
And is this is a continuation of an agreement in contemplation of a long-term agreement or an agreement with another third party?
No, a contemplation with a long-term agreement with NHCC.
Okay. Thank you. I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And before we consider a motion for adjournment, I would ask Executive Director Evan Cohen to give us an update on the county's current financial plan and just a summary of his analysis, and maybe we can discuss some of the events that may have changed since our last update. We'll update the board as well in terms of things that have recently occurred.
Okay. So the administration is releasing its proposed 2020 budget and 2020 through 2023 financial plan next Monday, September 16th. We will, of course, review that and analyze the underlying baseline assumptions and report back to you with our findings in a report at our next meeting next month, prior to the county legislature moving to adopt the budget. With respect to 2019, we are currently projecting a potential gap operating deficit of approximately $76 million in 2019 if all the risks we identified go unresolved. Our projection does not account for potential unfunded costs from new labor agreements which are being negotiated. However, it does include the negative impact of the county using $61 million of bond proceeds to pay tax cert refunds earlier this year. And as a reminder, the $61 million of bond proceeds came from a $100 million borrowing, which was authorized for the county to undertake at the end of 2018. So there was a piece that was used for 2018 tax cert refunds, and $61 million of it was used to pay 2019 tax cert refunds. In addition, so that $61 million is part of the $76 million overall gap projected.
It would be
gap
15 million without it, in other words. Yeah.
In addition to that $61 million, though, there are some significant unfavorable budget variances, particularly in departmental revenues, fines and forfeitures, sale of county land, and sales tax revenue. Now, the sale of county property is the only risk over which the county has some limited degree of control. The others will unfold as they may, with the county being unable to really control their destiny. The projected risks, though, are largely being mitigated by vacancy savings that are being generated from 334 vacant positions. The reliance on vacant positions to maintain balance is somewhat concerning for two reasons. Actually, for three reasons. The first concern relates to the possible impact these vacancies are having on the county's ability to deliver services fully and efficiently. For example, a cornerstone of the assessment reform efforts required increasing staffing above last year's, in the Department of Assessment, above last year's levels, yet there are still 63 vacancies in the assessment department. In addition, the Correctional Center and the Police Department have 63 and 228 vacancies respectively, which are contributing to the driving overtime usage in both the Correctional Center and the Police Department. The second concern relates to the fact that the vacancy savings are non-recurring. So although the savings are available this year to mitigate risks that we have identified, they're not necessarily available to cover projected revenue shortfalls and or overspending next year, should the county desire to actually fill these positions, which was their original plan. And related to that is the concern that these non-recurring vacancy savings is a probable source of funding to cover new costs that may result from labor negotiations. But the additional costs will impede the county's endeavor to achieve long-term fiscal balance if the vacancy savings are the major contributor to paying for it in the first year. So we are closely monitoring the budget and will bring to the board's attention any new or widening variances that develop. And that concludes my comments.
Well, maybe we should ask them, as part of this budget process, to evaluate the necessity of those positions in terms of which ones they actually are going to need in the future versus ones that can be eliminated for recurring savings, if that's the case. Maybe that's an exercise they ought to go through and something we should ask for as part of the process.
I think it's a worthy exercise. I have expressed that sentiment to them on more than multiple occasions, that they should take down, if these vacancies are kind of permanent vacancies, then you should actually remove them from the budget. There's been resistance on the OMB's.
But we'll also point out that I think that last year we approved the first 100 of what they hoped would be $300 million in ultimate borrowing on cert claims, and that there are conditions to be met before we'll approve the next 200. They're pretty close to it. I mean, without the $61 million this year, they'd be half of the number that it takes to trigger a control period, and they'd be in the territory of coming out of the control period. And so getting a handle on that $200 million in backlog, if indeed that's the number, would be pretty important if they try to demonstrate next year that they're out of it. Because we might be looking this time next year at a budget that could also call for the end of a control period.
That would be nice.
Yep, that would be great.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is worthy to update is that we had been risking payments from OTB and discussions between NIFA and the county and OTB resulted in an agreement between the county and OTB whereby OTB would pay to the county $5 million per quarter, and then the last quarter would be based on a certification that they didn't require any part of that last $5 million, and then remit whatever is left. Hopefully, in order to expected that full $5 million would be paid, but when that agreement went into place, we were still skeptical and waiting to see if, in fact, it would happen. But I believe, Evan, you can confirm that the county did receive that payment on August 15th?
Yes. So they received the first payment on May 15th, first $5 million tranche. The second was actually received on August 15th, as had been promised by OTB, committed to by OTB. The next payment is due from OTB is due February 15th of 2020.
Right.
But it will count towards 19.
Well, the intent is for it to count towards 19 in conversations both with the controller, well, leaving the controller's office out of it for the moment. It's not clear in any documentation which year the revenues are attributable to. The expectation by the current administration is that all the $5 million would count as 2019 revenue, and the last payment that will come in May 15th of 2020, that would be a 2020 revenue. But it's really unclear at this moment in time whether this next $5 million tranche, which year that will be booked to.
If they're going to have a deficit in 2019 anyway, they might want it in 2020.
Yeah, it really comes down to a timing. Then thereafter, the county should be getting 20 million a year.
And it would be $5 million payments, so you'd have 20 in every year at that point.
Right.
It wouldn't really matter. It would start to-
Right. Of course, the last part of the concern or risk is on that fourth and final payment of the quarterly cycle. It's subject to some type of reconciliation by OTB of how much money they feel they conclude they're able to turn over to the county. And until the $5 million's turned over, I think we would
Risk it.
risk it.
It'd be
Yep.
crazy not to. Yeah.
That was the goal. At least we got it from 20 to 5,
Right.
and we'll try to work it down further. But any other questions or updates about the current year, the upcoming budget cycle, or any other items of concern from any members?
Move to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Thank you.